All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to What is Cost-Informed Rate Setting, presented by Montana Child Care Business Connect. This is part 5 of our 7-part Tiny training series, with special thanks to our partners at the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services, our host organization here at Child Care Business Connect 0 to 5 Montana, and the Montana Small Business Development Center program, a resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration. As folks continue to come in, please, just a reminder, please enter your name and your title and your program into the chat box. We're going to go ahead and get started. As a reminder, many of you have already been on this, so this is going to be a refresher for most of you. Tiny Training Series is a series of 7 30-minute webinars, the second and fourth Thursdays of each month. Attendance at 4 of these live presentations will be equivalent to 2 hours of ECP credits. And for those of you who are now beyond that 2 hours, thank you for continuing to stick with us. We really are trying to help define some basic business concepts, as well as feature some of our Connect partners. Some of our upcoming trainings here along the right side today, again, we're talking about cost-informed rate setting. We've got 3 upcoming trainings planned with our partners at First Children's Finance. I'll be with you again on March 9th talking about marketing and setting expectations for your marketing strategies. And we'll round out with risk management presented by our partners at Payne West Insurance towards the end of March. As a reminder for some of you maybe not familiar with us, or those who are, Montana Child Care Business Connect is a program of 0 to 5 Montana. We launched in 2022. We do 5 basic things within our organization at Child Care Business Connect. On this side of things, advocacy for the industry is on the other side of our firewall. We provide trainings like this. We provide one-on-one technical assistance to help you get these concepts mastered. Our mentorship program will be launched in April. Our community capacity building program will be launched in March, as will our web resource hub. Rhonda Schwenke, many of you know, is our program manager. My name is Jason Nitschke. Haida Borgonovo is our communications specialist. Our community specialists are Shelby Whalen and Alex Du Bois, both based out of Butte. And Jennifer Owen is designing our mentorship program and then keeping us all on track. My name is Jason Nitschke again. And again, my title here at 0 to 5 and Child Care Business Connect is Senior Business Advisor. My goal is to help entrepreneurs turn their dreams into reality. And part of the reason why I share with you some of my academic and professional background is to highlight that the skills, the concepts that we are talking about here are skills that you can develop. You do not need to be naturally talented at business, finance, accounting, human resource management. You don't have to be naturally talented at those things. We can teach you how to do those things. At no point in my academic background have I ever taken a course on this stuff in graduate school or undergraduate school. I learned this stuff through application and through professional development in circumstances and situations just like this. Here are 3 topics for today, just 3, I'm minimizing. To help understand cost-informed rate setting, we're going to define all 3 primary pricing methodologies. We're going to get into the components of cost so that we can understand how to do cost-informed rate setting, and I'm going to show you the formulas on how to calculate cost-informed rates. But first, a reminder, the early childhood iron triangle. The goal here is for your business to achieve full enrollment, to collect full fees, and then to calculate full fees based on what it costs you to run your business. Our goal, again, to teach you the language of financial literacy today, to understand how to price your services accurately, and to ensure that your rates are set in such a way that you are covering 100% of not only your costs moving backwards and looking backwards, but future costs that you may need to incur to ensure that your business is viable moving forward. A couple of interchangeable terms I'm going to reference today. Not necessarily these things are always the same, but today costs and expenses are going to be the same thing. Price, rates, tuition, fees, those things are also going to be interchangeable. And revenue and sales, these are interchangeable terms. Let's start by talking about why pricing and rate accuracy is important. Let's start with the definition of a business. A business is the process of selling a product or service in an effort to make a profit. If cash flow is insufficient in your business may not be viable. If your business isn't viable, it may not be able to survive. If a business closes, your customers will have to find services elsewhere. And in childcare in particular, if a childcare business closes, given the fact that childcare, like housing, is an infrastructure to the overall economy and the overall workforce. So if a childcare business closes, the entire workforce and the entire economy is negatively impacted. Briefly, why do businesses fail? Statistically speaking, many of you have heard me say this before, 2 out of 10 businesses fail within 1 year, half of all businesses fail within 5 years, and 70% of businesses close within 7 years. Those are data points provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration on a national average. There are a million ways to fail in business, a million. I've got 2 failed businesses. I can tell you what they were. It wasn't cash flow, but cash flow is one of the top reasons why businesses are not viable. So I have an introductory question for you all. Be prepared. Be prepared. We're going to ask you to type your answer in the chat box. How do you currently determine what you charge families? Do you charge based on what Best Beginnings reimburses? Do you charge based on what providers in your market charge? Do you pull a number out of thin air? Or do you guesstimate what you believe families can afford? Go ahead and type some of those answers in. I will give you a minute. And take a drink at the same time.
A couple, what Best Beginnings reimburses. We've got to pull a number out of thin air, charge what other providers charge based on other programs, an average with Best Beginnings and other local providers. None of those. I charge what I need to cover expenses.
I love to hear that. And you know, Rhonda, I bring these questions up knowing that the correct answer is not of what I've offered, right?
Right.
So I would argue, on one hand, none of these are correct, and yet all of them can be correct. The most important thing is that we're triangulating how we're coming to these conclusions. And there are 3 specific approaches to calculating and determining what you charge. One is competition-based. Some of you referenced that. One is market-based. Some of you referenced that. And one is cost-based, which is what we're going to talk about today. And some of you referenced that. I was on a training a little bit earlier today with our friends at LivePlan, which is our cloud-based business and financial planning software that we offer for free to clients. And they had a couple of images that I wanted to drop in. If you're not looking at all of these 3 things, it's possible you're putting your head in the sand by not being well informed. The exercise of teaching this information to you and then offering one-on-one assistance is to help reduce your uncertainty, to kind of reduce this fear that comes along with guessing. And guessing is okay. It really is okay because of the iterative process. What we're trying to get you to do is put these ideas down and then evaluate them and come back and evaluate them again. Now let's provide some definitions here. What is cost-based pricing? I'm sorry, competition-based pricing. The definition of competition-based pricing is charging what direct competitors in your immediate vicinity are charging for the exact same types of services. There's a couple of nuanced subcategories here: penetration and skimming pricing. One is intentionally setting prices low to attract customers. The other is intentionally setting prices high and then offering discounts. Think of JCPenney and Macy's. This is their methodology for pricing. This is how they get people in the door. That's one methodology. Another methodology, think of it like squeezing as much juice out of a lemon as you possibly can. Market-based pricing is charging your customers in your immediate market what they're willing to pay, what they can afford to pay. There are 3 subcategories here worth highlighting. Premium pricing is intentionally suggesting that you are the best and therefore you are worth charging more, and assuming that your families can afford to pay for that. Value pricing considers the perceived benefits delivered to the customer based on a variety of different things. And then psychological pricing plays into a customer's wants and needs. You can kind of see where there's overlap on the marketing strategies here. Again, market-based pricing, what your customers can afford to pay in this market. Now, the point of what we're talking about today is to add definitions to this and to ensure that when you're setting your prices, setting your rates, that they include cost information. This is setting your prices on your business's actual or potential operating expenses, making sure that you're also including compensation to you as the owner and payment of profit to your companies so that not only you're living your life, but your business is viable as well. Pricing accuracy here depends on knowing 100% of your operating costs. And I would argue that using all three provides some methodology for science and calculation. And then we're also kind of artfully calculating this here too. So this is both art and science. The exercise of pricing accuracy is both art and science, because well-informed business decisions rely on triangulation of information. Okay, let's move on to components of costs here. Some of you will, this will be a refresher. Some of you, it's a quick reminder of definitions and terms here. Direct costs and variable costs are the same thing. What do those mean? Well, those are materials, food, direct labor, specifically linked to providing your service. So classroom materials, food for the kids, and the teachers in your classroom. Operating costs or fixed costs are not directly linked to the classroom. They're obviously important and required to be covered in your business, but they're not necessarily directly related to the delivery of services to drive revenue in your company. And to be able to cover 100% of your costs, we have to know what all of these costs are and how much they are. How do we do that? Let's look at three of our partners. On this slide, I'm really trying to help you understand what the critical components related to costs are. Hold on one sec, I just lost the screen. Okay, First Children's Finance is one of our training partners. They provided during the precision pricing training that they did for centers last week and for in-home programs next week. They provide a cash flow template that outlines 50 primary categories of costs and expenses. I have been looking at financial statements for the better part of 9 years as part of my day-to-day job. I've never seen one that had only 50. I've never seen one fit onto one page. So it's important to be able to categorize and understand what your costs are, what they could be, and what they should be. P5 Fiscal Strategies is one of our other partners who's designing our cost of care calculator. We were on a call a couple of weeks ago where they were discussing the price volume cost relationship and also suggested that pricing accuracy has a timing component. Your costs in the past don't necessarily reflect accurately what they will be in the future. Those of you dealing with increases in wage rates for your employees completely understand what this is. It's important to understand the timing element, costs looking backward, budget projections moving forward. True cost is what they're referring to with a budget projection. And lastly, I mentioned in our last training when I was with you last, a training called Profit Mastery. This is a program that helps understand the concept of cost structure in a business. More in particular, that every company has a different and unique cost structure. So kind of to summarize this page here, it's important to understand all of the costs of doing business, the difference between past and future costs, and the overall concept of a company's individual cost structure. So let's go into this and just illustrate this a little bit, hopefully to nail the point home. I've created two companies here, XYZ Learning Center and Funtime Playtown Academy, And yes, if somebody's out there and wants to steal one of those names, feel free. These two companies happen to be right next door to each other. They're both centers. They're both licensed for 50. They're both staffed with 7 employees. They both only serve 3, 4, and 5. They both charge the same amount per unit per kid per day. But that's where the similarities in those two businesses end. One does charge additional or does raise revenue in additional ways. The other doesn't. One participates in a star level. They both participate in stars, but not at the same level. So their reimbursements are different. One doesn't participate in the food program or Best Beginnings program because they don't want to do the paperwork. And yes, I have heard those words. People say that. Some of you may be thinking that as well. I don't want to do the paperwork. That's completely fine. That is up to you. That's how you choose to run your business. But it changes the cost structure of your company because of the things at the bottom of this. One company can afford to pay wages at $15 per employee per hour. The other can pay higher. One cannot afford to pay benefits. One can. The corresponding payroll burden is lower because they don't pay benefits. Their facilities expenses are different. Their debt is different. And I try to illustrate this to show that just because two businesses may be right next door to each other, maybe have a lot of similarities, they're not the same. And hopefully to nail this home, let's talk about these two ladies. Both very accomplished singers, very famous, very wealthy, very talented. But Taylor Swift and Rihanna are not the same. Neither one of them does the same style of music. They're just different. And that's the point of cost structure. Your business is not the same as your neighbor or your competitor. Therefore, we have to look at cost structure and include cost structure in your pricing methodology to ensure that you're charging enough to cover your business's cost of doing business. So then, how do we calculate? How do we do that? This is the concept of break even. We're going to go through some relatively complex finance topics here in about 4 minutes. I fully recognize that this is going to scare people. And yet we are here to help you. If you have questions, if you want to go into more detail with this stuff, we are here for that. So we're going to introduce this concept, and hopefully those of you who would like more help, one-on-one hand-holding or further discussion, please get on my calendar. We'll talk about this in greater detail. So what is break even? What is this concept? It is the point at which your business has no profit and no loss. It requires the categorization of costs based on how they behave within your business. And there are 4 steps. How do you calculate it? These are the 4 steps. We calculate fixed and variable costs. We calculate variable costs as a percentage of total sales, as a percentage of total revenue. We can then calculate the contribution margin, and this is where the magic starts to happen. By knowing your fixed costs and dividing it into your contribution margin, you can then accurately set your rates based on rates that are cost informed. So I just told you, I'm going to tell you again in a little bit more detail. So here's how we do it. Fixed and variable costs, what are they? Those again are directly tied to delivery of service. Fixed costs, that's the stuff not directly tied to the delivery of the service. That's step 1. Step 2, calculate variable as a percentage of sales. We have to find, if you have them, your previous year's total revenue. That's the starting point on step 2. Ideally, you'll have multiple years. And yes, we're going to get to those of you who aren't 3 years old or more. Step 2B is to divide variable costs into sales to get a percentage. And this could be, but is not always, and typically is not, based on what I see in financial statements, your gross profit margin. With those numbers, we can then calculate contribution margin. Total revenue into total revenue equals 100%. So 100% minus your variable cost percentage gives us our contribution margin. We then take that number in step 4 and divide it into your fixed cost dollar amount. That is break even. That is cost informed rate setting as a total gross revenue number. By the way, it is okay for your revenue to exceed break even. That's hopefully the goal. And most importantly, as we determine per unit rates, per child rates, we can calculate this and break it out to a per child rate. It's just an additional step. I told you what I told you. Now I'm going to tell you again with another example. I pulled this live plan example out of this scenario out of our program live plan. So it's not a real business, but it is a sample company. In this example, we've calculated fixed and variable. And if you can see direct costs there, 117 to 40, that is not the same as variable cost. How did I get to 412,770? If you look under salaries and wages, there is a line there for care staff. I'm going to assume that care staff is in the classroom. So I've added that number 246 plus a percentage of employee related expenses, that's payroll taxes and so on, into direct costs to get a variable cost number of 412,770, subtracted those same costs out of operating expenses to get fixed costs. Total revenue in year one in this example is 696,000. I've divided 412, the variable cost, 412,770 into 696 to get our variable costs. Subtracted 59%, which is the variable cost percentage, into 100% to get 41% as the contribution margin. The contribution margin then is divided into 197,670 to get our total revenue per year break-even dollar amount. To then calculate what that means for your per child rate, all we did is divide it out how many days per year that you're open, divided by the head count of your children enrolled, and there's your per day rate, your per child rate. So there's a lot there. I get it. It can be a lot. Couple of curveballs here to throw your way as well. If your costs need to or are going up, we can adjust in a budget and recalculate. If you're not paying yourself or not paying yourself enough, we can recalculate. If your company is not profitable, we can build in profits into a company and recalculate. An example of how to do that. Again, we're going to stick with fixed costs and the contribution margin already calculated. We're going to add new costs. Fixed cost was 197,670. Adding new fixed costs. What does that mean? Maybe it's a new benefits package. Maybe you've hired somebody. Maybe you're taking on debt, whatever that may be. Now we've calculated new fixed costs to get a new break even based on the contribution margin of your company of 604, and we could divide that out into what the per child rate would be. So to put it into a sentence, in this scenario, for every $50,000 in new costs, your sales would have to increase by 118,000. Again, we could divide that into how many days open per year you are, and then figure out how many kids you have to then set your rates accordingly per child. So that's a lot. I get it. We are going to move on. Some of you may be asking me this question right now. What if my business is pre-venture or I don't have a full year of revenue? A couple of additional methodologies we could use. We could use market margins. We can set some goals and targets. Successive approximation, kind of guesstimating too, and just remembering that this entire thing is iterative, so it can be worked on and calculated. Time to wrap here. So a couple of final slides. If you're having trouble off-ramping from the stabilization grant and you believe rates might be a cause of that, there are some things that we can do. Obviously, we can do rate adjustments based on cost information. We can diversify revenue. What does that mean? That's unique to your situation. We probably want to talk about that in greater detail. And then all the way back to one of those initial slides, we can consider worst case scenarios. We do not want that. We want to figure out how to adjust your rates, how to drive additional revenue into your company so that we don't have to consider worst case scenarios. In closing, what have we learned? Your business is unique. You might be Rihanna, you might be Taylor Swift, you might be rock, you might be country, you might be something else. Accurate rate setting is art and science. I brought this up last time. Finance is fun. I have seen this concept of break even work in other industries. I've seen it work in this industry, and it works. Calculating this way works. Yes, there are nuance. Yes, there's other problems that come from that, but finance is fun. We can figure this out with math, and we are here to help you do that. If you'd like some additional training on this topic, the Profit Mastery course is about cost structure, is about rate setting and understanding this concept. It's offered in the state of Montana through the Montana Small Business Development Center program administered at the Department of Commerce. It is a 2-day course. It's 16 hours. You can, if you do it online, you can do it at your own speed. I am certified in that course. So if you do have concepts, as a matter of fact, my 2 o'clock meeting is on this topic. It is a great course. You can also get one-on-one consultation with us. You can find my calendar on our website, childcarebusinessconnect.com. You can schedule right there. And a reminder of upcoming trainings we've got going on for family group providers. That precision pricing, it's the same concept in a 2-hour setting with First Children's Finance. As a reminder as well, all of our past recordings are available on our YouTube page. You can find that on our website. If you'd like to connect further with us, there's my email address. You can formally request assistance through that link. You can schedule directly on my You Can Book Me page, sign up for our website, or find us on social. And that's all we've got for you today. We'd like your feedback. If you do want me to follow up, please indicate in the survey that you'd like me to follow up. I'm happy to continue to provide these services and make sure that this concept not only gets applied, but is fully understood and how powerful the tool can be. That's all I've got. As you're filling out your survey, we've got a couple more minutes. I'm happy to take a question or two.
So Jason, I'll just say so everybody hears too, in case they're wondering or reading the chat. There's a comment about, was under the impression we couldn't raise rates with the stabilization grant. So I'm gonna just check in with the department on that, double check on that, and we'll make sure to send an answer on that out to everybody. But many are, I mean, those are ending, and so, you know, as those are ending, this is definitely something to look at, but I will for sure get a definite answer on that.
And thank you, Melanie, for asking that question.
Yeah.
Any other questions that you're seeing around? I'm scrolling through now.
No, I don't believe so. Other than my reminders to make sure I capture your name. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you. And like I said, if anyone would like to consider furthering this conversation, making sure that the concept gets nailed home, we did run through rather sophisticated finance in about 10 minutes. And there is so much more nuance when you actually start to apply it. It's never a singular number, but it is an iterative process. So please feel free to connect with us. Happy to discuss and answer questions and address some of these concepts moving forward. But thank you everyone for attending. I think I will stop share and stop recording.